Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we will examine a very significant issue that has taken the world by storm. The whole world is wondering how come India, which is a strategic partner of world's most powerful country, that is USA, especially in the context of Indo-Pacific stage, where the USA is hell-bent on containing China by way of Quads, etc., has fallen apart from USA after Trump's belligerent trade policies, which are likely to hit Indian economy in definite terms. Ladies and gentlemen, you know sometimes the global alliance doesn't fall apart with a big bang. No armies are required, no sanctions are required. It is just crumbles. It could be a handshake that's left hanging. It could be a conversation that turned cold. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on a moment that sent shockwaves through the world stage. We are talking about something raw, something very, very personal. Because when Donald Trump talks, you may love him or hate him, the world listens. And this time, he didn't go after a country or even a system. He blamed only one person. In his own words, that one man destroyed US India relationship. So, who's this man? And what really went down behind those closed diplomatic doors? This isn't just about politics. It's about ego, pride, power, and the rise of new kind of an Indian diplomacy that just refuses to bend. Ladies and gentlemen, let's rewind a bit. Not long ago, the world saw India as a developing country. They saw crowded streets and abject poverty all around. But they missed something, and that was fundamental, and that was a powerful hunger to rise. Today, India isn't just participating in the global economy, it's driving it. The IMF, the World Bank, says that India is the world's fastest growing major economy. India's GDP growth is outpacing giants like Germany, Japan, even the US. While the other countries are dealing with recession, India is investing and building. Think about this. Over 70,000 startups have been launched in India since 2016. India today is the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. We are not just talking about apps, we are talking about a generation that wants to create industries and not just get jobs in it. India became a pharmaceutical powerhouse during the COVID-19 pandemic, exporting vaccine to over 70 countries in the world free of cost. After the sanctions on Russia, post-Russia-Ukraine war, India, on request from the Biden administration, even stabilized fuel prices through strategic international ties while the West struggled with inflation. Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't just a survival, it is a strategy. Today, India is no longer India of cheap labor. It is India of smart capital, India of billion-dollar valuations, and India of green energy revolutions. And the West is watching. Because they know when 1.4 billion start winning, there is no turning back. Ladies and gentlemen, so how did this new India collide with one of the most powerful, unpredictable leaders of the world has ever seen? The man who built his empire on dominance is Donald J. Trump. He was used to walking into a room and owning it, but not this time. Because this time, sitting across the table was Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, a man of few words but immense weight. In that high stakes room, one thing became very clear. India wasn't there to bow, it was there to be heard. Trump makes headlines because of something deeply personal. He told the world that one Indian diplomat, not Modi, not the nation of India, but one man had destroyed US India relationships. And that single sentence wasn't a grievance, it was a revelation. It showed us that global politics is about people, their egos, respect, and the emotions. Trump didn't feel dismissed by a nation, he felt rejected by a person. And when someone like Trump feels rejected, he doesn't forget. Let's be real. Trump wasn't upset about the tariffs or the defense contracts. He was upset that someone dared to say no to him. That someone was Dr. S. Jaishankar, a career diplomat, a ruthless nationalist, and intellectual to the core who understands the present world order better than anybody else does. And what more, fully supported by Modi ji, the Prime Minister of India. For decades, India was the silent partner on the world geopolitical stage. Cooperative, polite, and agreeable. The West got used to an India that listened more than it spoke. An India that waited for a seat at the table. But this generation of Indian diplomacy is different. It doesn't ask, it asserts. When Trump's team expected quick wins and concessions, they got clarity, calm, confidence, and an unapologetic no. However, India didn't reject partnerships, it rejected pressure. Jaishankar wasn't rude, he was firm. He wasn't emotional, he was professional, he was strategic. He challenged the assumption that India could be managed or steered. And that quiet resistance shook the room. The Trump's foreign policy is built on chemistry, the admiration, and obedience. So when Jaishankar stood his ground and calmly protected India's autonomy and interests, it wasn't diplomacy, it was disruption to Trump. To Trump, this was personal. That's what sparked the shift. Trump pulled back from India, not because of trade or the defense, but because someone had refused to validate his worldview. Jaishankar became the symbol of a new India that values dignity over deals. This moment matters because it shows how one quiet voice can raise a nation's standing. Jaishankar didn't make it a performance. He understood that you represent a country by standing for it, not by flattering others and listening to them quietly. There was a specific high stakes meeting when Trump's aides wanted concessions, but India wanted fairness and respect. Jaishankar said no to tariffs, no to technology transfer, no to defense procurement. He refused to let India be twisted. Trump saw this as a personal rejection. From that moment on, the tone changed. The trade deals got stuck. Defense agreements stalled. Eventually, Trump blamed one man for this fallout, and that was S. Jaishankar. Even after 2020, the friendship between the two countries started to fracture publicly. The US pulled India's GSP trade benefits. America first clashed with self reliant India. Washington wanted more access to Indian agriculture, fisheries, and the leather and the gem industry. And India said, not at the cost of our independence, not the cost of our 60% farmers, fishermen, and other skilled workers. On defense, India bought S-400 missile system from Russia despite US threats of sanctions. And India stood its ground. And then came Ukraine. The West wanted condemnation from India, but India chose neutrality. India chose strategic autonomy. Strategic autonomy wasn't a buzzword for India. It was a line in the sand and now ingrained in the hard rocks of the character of India as a strong and a powerful nation. This is not the India of 90s. India isn't asking for a seat at the table. It is claiming the seat at the table now. In the end, it wasn't a war of sanctions. It was ego versus sovereignty. Trump, fueled by the loyalty and ego, and Jaishankar, powered by the principle and strategy. This wasn't about policy fair. It was about one individual refusing to shrink, and refusal echoed across the world. Not only did this man, Dr. S. Jaishankar, live up to the situation, but promptly started promoting the dialogues with UK, EU, Brazil, Russia, Mexico, and even with China to offset all the damage that Trump was likely to impose in India. The USA was to sell billions of dollars worth of military hardware to India. Now that goes to other countries. The USA badly needs India as a pivot in Indo-Pacific to counter China's hegemonic overtures. Now let's see how that plays out. In diplomatic overtures on the contemporary geopolitical stage, There are no permanent friends, there are no permanent enemies. It is just your national interest. And Dr. S. Jaishankar understands this better than anybody else. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is how India stands its ground. And the next time you feel the pressure to compromise or just to be accepted by the West, remember this moment. One man, one voice, one stand changed everything, because that is how the mindsets shift. That is how the nations rise. And that is how one quiet voice can echo across the entire world. And that's what contemporary India is. Rewriting the lost prestige and prosperity it once enjoyed when it was titled Sone Ki Chidiya. So that's show for tonight. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time very soon on another subject of this sort. Thank you very much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat ki Sena.
Please like and subscribe.